morning. My name is Naomi Ruff. I am a master gardener in Wyandotte County, Kansas. And this morning we are going to plant garlic. You probably think, well, why are you planting garlic in the fall? Well, for garlic to make cloves, it has to be planted in the fall and it overwinters, and that gives it time to make cloves. By cloves, I mean garlic comes in a bulb, but inside there are several cloves. And so you plant each clove, and each clove in turn will make a bulb like what I have here. This particular clove is elephant garlic, which technically is not a garlic, but it smells like garlic, so we call it that. So after you break the clove apart, the bulb apart, we get all these cloves, and we will plant each one of these. So just continue to break them all apart. And one thing you do not want to do, when you cook with garlic, you peel it. We do not want to peel garlic before we plant it. We want to put it with this peel on it. When you plant garlic, it needs to be planted about 4 inches deep. And so I have this little stick here, and I have it marked 4 inches deep. So I will stick it in the ground to kind of make a hole and stick my head of garlic down there. You don't have to use the stick. This ground is so soft that I can just stick it by itself. You need to plant your bulbs about 6 inches apart, which I planted those too close, about 6 inches apart, so they have time and space to make their bulbs. Then after you plant it, you just cover it up. And so I'll move over here about 6 inches, and I will plant another row. When you plant the garlic, you want to be sure that these little root parts go in first and this point stays at the top. If you do plant them upside down, they will make their way around and come out, but it's just a lot harder. And that's how you plant elephant garlic. So as far as care, usually you don't need to water during the winter. The snow will land on this and will keep it damp. I am going to cover this with some straw mulch, which will keep any moisture in. And there's really not a lot of care that you need to do. In the spring, they will start sprouting, and don't get concerned if they come up and there's still frost to come, because they will survive. And as far as harvest, it's usually about end of June, 1st of July when they're ready to harvest. With the garlics, these are hardneck garlics, and they will have a scape that comes on it after they start, and you can actually harvest those scapes and use them just like you would garlic. So that's a short lesson on how to plant garlic.
Hi, my name is Lori Wellner, and I am one of the Family Consumer Science educators for K-State Research and Extension in Wyandotte County. I cover nutrition, wellness, and food safety. Today we are going to talk about garlic, but before we get into all the specifics, I'd like to just throw out a couple of fun little facts for you to think about. Garlic has been around during ancient times. It's considered to be one of the oldest flavorings that we have. We have been consuming it in our diets for over 9,000 years. That is a track record. They are also a part of the lily family, along with onions and scallions. And can you guess which state is the largest producer, producing more than 90% of the crop of garlic? And if you said Kansas, you are wrong. It is actually California. I'm sure most of you got that. So we're going to just kind of, again, moving forward, talking about some of the basics. So a little bit about buying. As you can imagine, you can find garlic in various forms. I have just a couple of varieties here. You can buy it packaged. This comes with 4. You can find packages of 2. Sometimes you can also find them in the mesh bag, which allows that airflow, which is kind of my preference in buying them. You can also buy them jarred. When you go to the produce section, you'll find them in the refrigerated kind of produce section. You can find it in paste. And again, in all kinds of forms. This one is minced, but you can find it chunked and I think sliced as well. So this makes it super convenient. And then, of course, you can just buy them individually like that. One thing that you want to make sure that you look for is not to buy any with green sprouts on it. Any discoloration at all is probably something that you want to avoid. You want to look for garlic that is whitish, off-white in color, and nice and round and firm. You don't want anything soft or shrivelly. And you can see in the paper, it's got this thin little paper and it's all intact here. And you want to make sure that that paper is intact. Now this one has a little bit of a purple hue, and I was talking to my colleague who's our horticulture agent, and she said that is perfectly fine. It's just another variety of garlic, and this is what was available in the open bin when I bought it. Okay, so we've talked about purchasing, and we're going to move into then the preparation. All right, so this is the bulb or the head, and when you break this apart, that will be the little individual pieces will be called cloves. And so I'm going to show you just quickly. One recommendation in preparing this, or kind of loosening up the head to get to those little cloves, is to roll this across your cutting board or a flat surface, just to kind of roll it, and that loosens it up, giving pressure to it. That's not my favorite way to do it. My personal way is just to put it on a flat surface, apply a little bit of pressure. I have to use usually both hands, and there you go. It loosens it up, and you can see, then you can get to those little cloves where all that wonderful flavor is. All right, so that's pretty handy. Now, a couple of other things to talk about when you get to the cloves. A couple of ways to, again, make sure that you get that papery item off the outside of the cloves here to get down to the actual garlic itself. One recommendation I read was to put your garlic cloves in a jar, a large jar, larger than the amount of garlic cloves that you have. Make sure that there's a lid or a plate, something flat, and then just shake it. Give it a good shake, and you'll see those little papers come off in the jar. Pretty cool. Not really my preference, because that's just, for me, that's a lot of cloves that I don't need to be, to be prepared just yet. I usually use 1 or 2 at a time. But again, this is a great method if you need, 15 plus cloves for a particular dish. So the method that I prefer, however, is to, we'll just get all this out of the way, take the flat surface of a knife and just give it a little bit of a tap, and then you can see that those papers come off nice and easy, mostly. And so you'll just have to get in there and kind of loosen that with your fingers. But then you get down to the clove. You want to make sure that you don't hit that too hard, though, because you really want to retain the shape of the clove. And then once you're there, you can just trim off that end, get rid of those ends, and then you can prepare it however you want to from there. Okay. Now let's just talk briefly about storage. When it's in this form, with the paper that's still on the head or the bulb, you're going to just keep it in a cool, dark place. I keep mine in my cabinet in an open container. Another recommendation was to keep it in that mesh bag, again allowing for that contact of air. So that's pretty easy, and in that way it keeps for several weeks. Again, just make sure you look for any discoloration, any kind of shriveling or softness, and in that case you don't want to use that. And then once you get down to the clove itself, in this case here, you want to keep it in an airtight container in your refrigerator. Don't keep this in the refrigerator, again, in the cupboard, but keep this in your refrigerator, nice tight container. And in doing so, it'll last you for about a week. You might lose some pungency, but that's okay. And you can even freeze it as well. Now, let's a little bit on nutrition. Really, it's very simple. They are very low, well, they are low in calories. They have no sodium, no cholesterol. So really, the sky's the limit on the ways that you want to use it. Just touching briefly on those health benefits, I know there's a lot of research being done. I really don't have the time to get too much into that. I would say just do your homework. I know that there has research been done in terms of inflammation in certain types of chronic diseases and the benefit of using garlic in reducing some of those risks. But again, just do your homework, look at the clinical trials and see what the outcomes are. Okay, now it's time to get into the recipes. We want to hand wash throughout the day, obviously after various occasions, but certainly before we start doing any type of food preparation in the kitchen. And so we are going to first make sure you get your hands wet, because you have to have your hands wet for the soap to do its job. And we are just going to be lathering up here for about 20 seconds, which is the ABC song and other songs that people like to sing to. Whatever works. And again, make sure that you're trying to get up the back of your hands and up and around. Get in there and really scrub in between. And a little warm right now. Give it a good rinse. Trying not to touch anything. And then dry your hands with a single-use towel, preferably. Nice and dry. And there you go. So once you have those cloves prepared and ready to go, now they can go in multiple dishes. And again, like I said, it's one of the oldest flavorings. So that, for a good reason, you can use it in a number of different ways. But today, I'm going to show you a recipe on a slow cooker Moroccan soup or stew. But before that, just I want to talk briefly about roasting garlic. Again, it's one of the easiest things that you can do to get this amazing flavor. So my colleague, thank you, she actually, one recommendation was to put it in a muffin tin. Most ways you'll see is to put them in a foil, aluminum foil with garlic, a little bit of olive oil, and maybe some seasoning, maybe some some onion powder to that. Again, kind of however you want the flavors to come out, to be revealed in that. And you roast that in the oven for about 45 minutes to an hour until it's nice and soft, and you get that paste. And again, you can do so much with that. You can even just take it out and simply use it as a spread on crackers. And again, the flavor is so unique, it just imparts something quite different than chopping up garlic and putting it in a dish. So give that a try. This is one that we did in the muffin tin. We wanted to give it a try. And so this is it in its entirety. So, it's going to be a little bit more dark because it being exposed to the heat elements. Again, as opposed to using that aluminum foil and encasing that all together. And so when you open that up and cut into it, you can see that the insides are nice and squishy, and they just want to pop out like that. So you can just take your knife or spoon and scoop that out, put it in potatoes. Again, all kinds of options once you get it to this point. I would do several at a time. Just to have them available, and depending upon how you're going to use it. All right, so that is roasted. And then the recipe, like I mentioned, is a Moroccan stew. And For that, I started with a butternut squash. I would have preferred to find one already prepared in the produce section that's in those handy little bags. I did not find that. So I had to buy one, which is always a good learning experience. It is one of those things that you really need a sharp knife and a little bit of patience. So how I did it, I'm not going to show you here. I started by taking the end off of the small end of the butternut squash and then cutting it down the middle. And then I took my vegetable peeler and just simply peeled it until you get down to that nice, beautiful orange color. And then you just slice it into chunks. Now on the large end, that's where the seeds will be contained. And so again, once you get into that fleshy area and you can see the seeds, scoop them out, and then you're ready to chop. Now another recommendation is to maybe take a knife and slice a small slice off of the end. That gives you then that flat surface to work on so it's not rolling around on you, and then you could cut it into strips and then into cubes. So that's what I did for this recipe. So you have the butternut squash. We also have lentils. Now you'll see that the recipe calls for red lentils. I did not find them in the store, so I did a quick search as to which ones would be more comparable, and the recommendation, because of the texture, was the green lentils to use. So that's what I chose, and then you just have a couple of canned items, the garbanzo beans, a can of tomato sauce. I chose low sodium, and then you had green pepper and an onion in there, and of course garlic. It called for 4 cloves of garlic. I used a couple more just because I like the flavor of garlic. This is one of those dishes that you can vary in a number of different ways. And then the fun different seasonings. This is really the part that gives this unique flavor to it. So it has paprika. The recipe called for smoked. This is what I had on hand. Cumin and turmeric. It gives it that really pretty color. And then cumin, and what I don't have out is cinnamon, pretty commonly found in most home kitchens. So all of these came together. Oh yes, and I used fresh ginger, and I minced that, so that added another really fun flavor, another different level of flavor in this stew. So we got a lot of flavors going on, but I think that you'll enjoy it. Once you get it all put together, this morning I just literally dumped them all into my slow cooker and cooked them for about 4 hours, and this is the end result. So again, you can see it's very fresh, it smells amazing, and we did have to do a taste sample. It is very good. You can obviously alter the salt and pepper. If you're making for somebody else, you could pull back on the salt and allow them to choose how much that they want to put in there. But this was the end result. Great for a cold winter night to keep your body warm. I hope you will give it a try. This recipe, along with another resource from the North Dakota State University Extension, specific to garlic, will be on the website. And again, thank you for listening and allowing me into your home. Bon appetit.